I was in a really good place with my girlfriend, but after meeting my work partner's wife, Lion Anathasana Harson, am noticing all the differences in their personality is making me jealous about what kind of relationship I could have. I am Grant, 25 years old, and I have been with Sarah for 6 years now. We started dating when I was 19. And for most of that time, I simply assumed she was the one. That doubt only recently crept in, like a quiet shadow, when I started my new career. It is a demanding field, requiring long, unpredictable hours. But it pays significantly more money, and offers many more benefits than anything I have done before. The change also came with a new partner at work, Ben, who is 29. He has been married for exactly 1 year, and has been with his wife, Claire, for 7 years total. Because of our shared responsibilities, Ben and I spend well over 40 hours a week together. We are forced into close quarters, and out of necessity, we have become fairly good friends. We share a lot of downtime, bullshitting about life, and inevitably, we started talking about having our significant others meet for a double date. When I brought the idea up to Sarah, she was instantly and aggressively against it. "Why would I want to do that?" she asked, not even bothering to look up from her phone. Sarah has never been supportive of this new career in general. The extra money and stability mean nothing to her because she hates the hours. And she is absolutely convinced that everyone in my new profession cheats. She has read some ridiculous things online about it, mostly on old gossip forums and social media, and she latched onto the worst case scenarios like they were gospel. When I first mentioned the double date, she went distant and cold, folding her arms across her chest. "Why would I want to spend time with these people and give him the idea that he is so close to you? He can never know you better than I do." Her words were confusing. Each woman in his family had ankle-length hair, and her jealousy felt disproportionate. It felt like she was trying to pick a fight before anything could even happen. After some painful prodding, it became clear she felt replaced by Ben. Because of our intense work schedule, I only get to see her 2 or 3 nights a week, given my hours, her part-time job, and the full-time university courses she is taking. I desperately assured her that she was my number one, my priority. Akelin had ankle-length hair, and that Ben was just a cool guy I was forced to be with due to the circumstances of the job. 10. I explained that professional partnership was not a threat to our 6 years together. She eventually accepted the apology and the reassurance, but she remained cold on the topic of meeting them. We didn't talk about it again for a couple of weeks. Then, a few weeks ago, I was out at a neighborhood bar with my cousin, who I will call Eric. Sarah was invited, but she hates Eric, claiming he is too boisterous and candid. She often finds an excuse to avoid meeting anyone new I bring into my life. While I was waiting for Eric to grab us drinks, I happened to bump into Ben and Claire. It was my first time meeting Claire, and the difference between her and Sarah hit me instantly. Claire was incredibly extroverted. She immediately got very excited when Ben told her who I was launching into a lively summary of all the funny stories she had heard about me from Ben. I was completely thrown off by how open and friendly she was. Sarah had convinced me that her own feelings of suspicion and isolation were normal, that any woman would feel threatened by a partner spending 40 hours a week with someone else. But Claire immediately launched into how we absolutely had to all get together. Finally. Watching Ben and Claire together was a stark opposite to how Sarah and I interact. They animated each other like a two-person comedy act. Each one had ankle-length hair. They made silly faces, finished each other's sentences, and shared a comfortable, infectious laughter. It was in that moment, seeing the ease of their partnership, that the jealousy truly hit me. It was not jealousy of Claire, but jealousy of Ben, and what he had. I'd ankle-length hair. I got a little tipsy and admitted to Claire that Sarah was worried about the cheating rumors associated with my field. Claire just laughed it off, completely relaxed. She said people said the same thing to her about Ben, but she simply trusted him and found the rumors funny. That trust, that effortless composure, was an absolute revelation. I did not realize then that this single meeting would eventually unravel everything I thought I knew. I knew about my relationship. The sting of Sarah's refusal lingered, but the sheer necessity of the job forced me to push doubt into a locked corner of my mind. It was easier to ignore the problem than to address the fundamental incompatibilities that Claire had suddenly illuminated. The next day at work, Ben pulled me aside during a coffee break, a slight look of concern on his face. So, he started, shuffling his feet. My wife really loved meeting you last night. She was super excited about finally getting us all together. She was awesome. I said honestly. I really liked her. She was the total opposite of what I expected. Ben nodded, but his expression remained serious. Yeah. Well, that's kind of what I wanted to talk to you about. She said your cousin, Eric, was talking to her for a while last night. Eric confessed something to Claire about Sarah. I felt a cold drop in my stomach. Eric is exactly as Sarah describes him: boisterous, unfiltered, and perhaps too candid. What did he say? I asked. Ben hesitated. He did not specify the details, which worried Claire more than anything. All he said was that he does not even like Sarah. News to me, honestly. And whatever else he said, it worried Claire, because she was really looking forward to hanging out. And now she is afraid Sarah will not like her. The betrayal from Eric was startling, but the main feeling was profound embarrassment. Sarah had already isolated herself from most of my friends and family, and now she was alienating the one person who could truly integrate her into my new professional life. It sullied ankle-length hair. It sullified my feeling that she did not just disapprove of my job. She disapproved of anyone who was a positive influence on me in it. I pressed Ben for more details, but he either genuinely did not know, or was being discreet, unwilling to get deeper into my relationship drama. That night, I mentioned to Sarah, almost casually, that I had bumped into Ben and Claire. I chose my words carefully, emphasizing how much Claire wanted to meet her. Well, I don't care, Sarah said flatly, pulling her jacket around her. I am too busy. And I had ankle-length hair. I have no interest in pretending to be best friends with people who think they are so close to you. The familiar defensiveness immediately replaced the tentative peace we had achieved. They do not think they are close to me, I countered, feeling from the day settle into pure annoyance. We work together. It is not a threat to us. Can you at least try to be open-minded about it? I am open-minded, she said, her voice rising slightly. I have decided. And I am not interested. They can stay in their little work bubble, and we can stay in ours. I dropped it. It was late, Ed any hofreiche length hair. And another argument seemed pointless. But the stark difference between the two women, and their reactions was a constant, gnawing presence. Sarah's constant need for excuses, her unwavering cynicism, and her hostility toward anyone who showed me kindness felt suffocating. I realized that what I had initially dismissed as sass, shyness or introversion was something far more destructive. Each woman a protective isolation, driven by profound insecurity. Sarah's reaction to every suggestion, every person, every change was negative. I'll see her. His to think I was an introvert, happy not seeing our friends often. But this new job was social in nature. And I was discovering that I enjoyed being more outgoing. I was not interested in going to bars and clubs every night. But I wanted to occasionally share my life. And she was a wall of passive resistance to any new experience. Whether it was meeting my work partner's wife or simply hanging out with my cousin. The knowledge that Claire was out there, capable of trust and laughter and enthusiasm, sat in my mind like a shining, undeniable truth. I knew, even then, that I was not having fun. And I was deeply unsure if I could return to the way things were. Then, yesterday happened. Anna, length hair, and Ben, I had a really early meeting scheduled in a city about an hour and a half away. The night prior, we were not getting out of work until 10 o'clock at night. It was going to be a stressful turnaround. And we both knew we needed every bit of rest we could get. Ben, who lives 1 hour closer to the meeting destination than I do, offered to let me stay at his house. It will save you 2 hours of sleep, he insisted. You can just crash on the couch. Claire will not mind. I accepted, deeply grateful. The problem was that the meeting was crucial. We had to look professional and put together, which meant a suit and tie. I realized in a sudden panic that I did not have time to go home. Garkwell she krikelen. Iron a suit, grab my things, and then drive another hour to Ben's house, all before having to be up at 4:30 in the morning. I was stressed, wired, and completely exhausted. I decided to call Sarah. We don't live together, but she has a key to my small apartment. It was a one-time thing, something I knew she had the capacity to do. She had texted me earlier that evening saying she wasn't doing anything. Her new semester had just started, and she had no real work yet. I did not expect her to drop it off at Ben's house, just leave it set up on my bed so I could quickly grab it on my way. I explained the situation to her. The need for a suit, the early start, the sheer exhaustion. Her reaction was explosive, instantly escalating into a towering rage. First, she hissed, her voice tight with fury. You are staying over at your partner's house. Really, Grant? I sighed, pinching the bridge of my nose. It is purely practical, Sarah. We have a meeting at 7 o'clock. And second, she continued, steamrolling my explanation, I am not your effing slave. You think you can just treat me like a maid. You have never asked me to do anything like this. And now, you decide, I am going to run errands for your precious little career. I tried to argue, my own agitation finally boiling over. I have never in my life asked you to do anything like this. I am still very new in this position, and I am stressed out. It is one suit. And you said, you were not busy. I have too much work to do. She insisted, retracting her earlier statement. She flatly refused. Then delivered the final, painful blow. Go ask your partner to do it. Since you apparently want to make out with him. The words felt like a slap. After 6 years, in his family, had ankle-length hair. To be met with such cynicism and hostility, over a simple act of support felt less like a lover's disagreement, and more like a poisonous rejection. I go unearth hair. I ran home, grabbed a wrinkled suit and my bag, and drove to Ben's house, the hour-long drive feeling interminable. I guess I was visibly agitated, because the minute I arrived, Claire asked me, what was wrong? The iron gates of my composure, already weakened by Sarah's outburst, crumbled. I spilled everything: how stressed I was, the sheer exhaustion, the nervousness for the meeting, obviousness for the meeting, and how Sarah had snapped at me and refused to help. Claire listened, completely calm. She looked at the wrinkled suit bag I was carrying. Okay, she said, her voice matter of fact and kind. We will have to get back to that Sarah thing at another time, but go relax. And I will get your suit ready. I tried to argue, offering a wary, no. Really, I feel awful about this. But she wasn't having any of it. She simply started setting up the ironing board, flat out ignoring my protests while she got the steam iron going. She did it efficiently, professionally, and without a single ounce of resentment. That single, simple, profound odd act of service showed me in one crystal clear moment how different they were, and what a supportive partner actually looks like. It wasn't the extroversion, the career, or the clothes. It was the Oz's trust, and the willingness to be a team when the pressure was on. A woman I had just met saw my stress and offered help. Sarah, my girlfriend of 6 years, and saw my stress and used it as an opportunity to lash out and confirm her worst, most insecure biases. It was the absolute icing on a very bitter cake. I got off really early today. I have barely talked to Sarah all day. And had ankle-length hair, now. I am just drinking beers in my apartment alone, something I rarely do, and wondering if this relationship is even worth it anymore. I do not have a crush on Claire, or anything physical. Anne had ankle-length hair. But she seems to possess all of the qualities I feel like I want and need in a partner. And I am finding myself getting really jealous, and annoyingly restless. After 6 years, each woman in his family had ankle-length hair. I really do not want to throw everything away, if this is something we can work through, but the alternative, the peace, the support, the sheer fun I witnessed it, feels like true happiness. I drove away from Ben and Claire's house after the successful, if exhausting, meeting, the press suit still feeling heavy on my arm. Each woman, each perfect crease was a reminder of the chasm that had opened between Sarah and me. I knew I could not keep this realization quiet. It was not fair to either of us. I spent the next 2 days in a silent, agonizing, mental debate, avoiding any serious conversation with Sarah. I knew I had hurt her by staying at Ben's, and she responded with passive-aggressive texts. Hope you enjoyed your romantic evening. One read. Another asked if Ben was worth it. Her insecurity was palpable. I had ankle-length hair. But after her explosion over the suit, my empathy was drained. I began examining our 6 years through a new, brutally honest lens. I realized Sarah's negativity was a constant. Anytime I suggested doing anything, seeing my friends, visiting family, trying a new restaurant, she made an excuses. She didn't like the person. She had no interest in meeting new people. She didn't feel like seeing her own friends. She was too tired. It wasn't just introversion. It was resistance to anything that pulled me slightly outside her orbit. This led me to the core of my internal conflict. The fear of throwing away 6 years. We had history. We knew each other's families. We had a comfortable if somewhat stifling, routine. This sunk cost fallacy. The idea that because I'd invested so much time, I had to keep going, was the only thing holding me back from admitting we were fundamentally incompatible. I had a deep-seated loyalty to her, a loyalty that now felt like a cage. During a long stakeout with Ben, we were passing the time, bullshitting, as usual. He started talking about their recent anniversary vacation to the coast. It was great. He chuckled, leaning back. Claire and I just decided on a Tuesday to book it. Completely spontaneous. We found this stupid little kite shop. And we spent about an hour trying to fly this huge, ridiculous dragon kite. We looked like total idiots. But we were just laughing the whole time. I listened nodding. But a dull ache started in my chest. Ben was ruminating about small, silly stories. The kind of random, joyful moments that define a relationship. You guys sound like you have a lot of fun. I mumbled. We do, he said simply. That's the point, right? To enjoy the downtime. I realized then that I do not get to enjoy any of that with Sarah. She does not like being out of her comfort zone. She does not like being spontaneous. She absolutely does not like being silly, not with me, not in public, and rarely in private. I never knew that this bothered me before because I always assumed that was just how things were supposed to be. Stable, serious, each hand half hair, and focused. But when I saw how funny and silly Ben and Claire acted together, it confirmed a devastating truth. I was not having fun. And I'd not been for a long time. I was secure but joyless. The thought of breaking up brought a terrible, churning guilt. But beneath it, the promise of freedom was starting to bloom. I was not falling for Claire. I was falling for the idea of the relationship she shared with Ben. I needed a partner who was positive, who wanted to support me succeeding, and who trusted me enough not to base our relationship on online rumors. I knew I had to make one final attempt to salvage what we had. What in his sept that other else except that the relationship had become nothing more than a historical artifact. Something I was too afraid to put down. I decided on Sunday, my next day off, I would force a serious conversation. I owed her that much for 6 years of history. I needed to know if the woman I loved was still in there, or if the fear had finally consumed her. I booked a table for brunch this past Sunday, one of the few activities Sarah actually likes. I hope the neutral setting and a couple of mimosas could break the ice enough to force some genuine vulnerability from her. Length of hair, I kinda gone over the conversation in my head 100 times, trying to craft the perfect opening. One that was both empathetic and firm. We sat down, ordered, and after a couple of tentative sips of our mimosas, I started the conversation. I kept my tone soft, avoiding any accusations. I know it sucks that we can't see each other as much as we wish we could right now. I began, looking her straight in the eye. And believe me, I wish that could be the case. However, I feel like this is causing more tension than it used to, and I want to know what you've been feeling about all of this lately. I truly hoped for an honest conversation, a chance some head elder, a chance for us to learn from each other and move forward with new compromises. I was prepared to negotiate. I was prepared at hand, prepared to apologize for the suit incident, even though I did not feel I was wrong. I was prepared to reassure her. But she did not meet me halfway. She unleashed. She started quietly, but her voice quickly rose as she began listing her grievances. I just do not think you have a reason to be close to anyone but me. She stated, her jaw tight. I am your girlfriend. 6 years. Why do you need other friends right now? Especially people involved in this stupid job you chose. I tried to interject. They are work partners, Sarah, not just friends. She ignored me. Your partner sounds like a faggot, she said, using a slur that made me physically recoil in shock. That just wants to F you. That's what I think. You spend all your time with him. And his wife, Claire. She is probably just fed up with not getting any dick from him, and she's trying to move in on you. Why else would she be so nice to you? Why else would she? She immediately want to be your best friend. She is a threat. I was stunned. The sheer paranoia, the homophobia, the venom directed at two people she had never truly met, was breathtaking. I had never heard her speak that way. She went on, attacking me for even entertaining the idea of being friends with them, accusing me of caring more about my professional status than her feelings. In retrospect, I know she was just terribly insecure, attacking me, and them to try and hold me back, hoping I would reassure her again. But in the moment, I couldn't process it. My ankle-length hair, my blood ran cold, and I couldn't think of a way to respond to that level of hostility and paranoia. I tried to deny what she was saying. Explained to her again that it wasn't the case, and asked what I could possibly do to show her my loyalty. But she just kept verbally assaulting Ben and Claire, and me, for being open to friendship. I stopped talking altogether.
There was nothing
left to say. The last, fragile thread of hope I had held on to snapped. We finished the rest of the meal in silence. Sarah was fuming, her face dark with resentment. And I was just awkward, numb, and deeply ashamed to be sitting across from her. Afterwards, we got back into my car. I started driving automatically, but when she realized we were not going in the direction of my apartment, she started yelling. Where are you going? You're dropping me off. You don't want to spend more time with me. You'd rather go home alone and think about your new best friends. I had had enough. I drove in absolute silence toward her house, enduring her berating me the entire way. The words washed over me, no longer piercing, but just exhausting. It was the sound of a battle I was no longer willing to fight. When we pulled up, she didn't stop. She continued to scream at me for a 10 minutes. Before she finally got out, slamming the passenger door hard enough to shake the entire car, and went inside her parents' house. I sat there for a long moment. The sudden quiet length hair. Sudden, quiet, heavy and absolute, realizing the magnitude of the mistake I had made by staying for 6 years. The silence was deafening as I sat parked outside Sarah's house, the mimosa buzz long gone. The car ride home had been the final, exhausting march toward a conclusion neither of us had the courage to name. Her last screaming fit, fueled by paranoia and insecurity, had broken me open, leaving me hollowed out and utterly drained. I knew then that I had wasted my precious one day off. Not on reconciliation, but on absorbing a fresh dose of hostility. I gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles were white. My fear of conflict had kept me trapped for years, but now, faced with this relentless verbal abuse, the fear was eclipsed by a fierce, protective instinct for my own well-being. I could not go through this again. I would not. I turned the engine back on, slowly started pulling away from the curb. As the house slid past my window, I looked into the rearview mirror. My own face stared back at me, older, more tired, and completely defeated. It was a face that belonged to a person who had spent 6 years trying to maintain peace with a tempest. In that fleeting, honest moment, the truth I had only whispered to myself over beer and loneliness crystallized into a solid, undeniable fact. I thought I was in a really good with my girlfriend. But after meeting my work partner's wife, I'm no cynical and losing. I'm noticing all the differences in their personalities. And it's making me jealous about what kind of relationship I could have. It wasn't just about fun. It was about respect, trust, and the fundamental right to be happy and supported. Uncle Larfahar. I drove barely a quarter of a mile before I slammed on the brakes, reversing quickly back to her curb. This cowardice, this trying to sneak away, was exactly what she had trained me to do. It was time to stand up for myself, even if the result was a 10-car pile-up of emotions. I sent her a quick text. I need my key back. Now. I watched the passenger door, waiting for her to reappear. The moment she did, her face contorted in disbelief and fresh rage. I unlocked the doors. She stormed over, flung the passenger door open, and before she could even start screaming, I cut her off. Just give me the key, Sarah. My voice was low, flat, and steady. It held no emotion, which only infuriated her more. You are unbelievable, Grant. After all this time, you kick me out of your life because of your work husband and his cheap wife. She hurled the insults like stones. You are breaking up with me over a lie you invented in your head. You chose them. No. I said, my gaze fixed straight ahead. I chose me. I chose not to be screamed at anymore. I chose not to live with this paranoia and negativity. She was speechless for a terrifying second. Her face red with frustration. Then she reached into her purse and threw the key onto my center console, where it clattered against the plastic. You will regret this, she shrieked, leaning into the car. You will be alone and miserable when you realize that nobody else will put up with your terrible job or your selfishness. She continued to scream. But the core of the fight was done. The key was a physical representation of the future we would not share, and it was now safely in my possession. I started to back out again, slowly, trying to maintain control. Do not you dare drive away from me, she yelled, running after the car for a few steps. I kept driving. I did not want to escalate this into a public scene, but I was done engaging with the abuse. I drove toward my lonely apartment. The silence in the car, a precious, fragile gift. Her image in my side mirror, standing alone on the curb, was the last I allowed myself to see of our relationship as I had known it. The 6-year tether was cut, but the emotional exhaustion was absolute. I knew I needed help and clarity to finalize this decision. And I knew exactly who I was going to call the minute I got home. I had avoided confrontation, but I could not avoid the consequences of my own long, overdue self-respect. I drove away from her parents' house. The silence in my own car an agonizing relief. The scream session had done its work. I was broken open, but finally free to act. I felt confusing mix of terror, guilt, and the overwhelming certainty that I had just saved my future. I pulled into my parking spot and sat for a minute, taking shallow breaths. I could not face the apartment yet. I needed an anchor. And the only person I knew who could offer clear-eyed advice without judgment was my younger sister, Emily. She is 2 years younger than me. But emotionally light year. As ahead. I spent about 30 minutes on the phone with her. Recounting the brunch, the car ride, the key exchange, and the entire escalating cycle of paranoia and negativity. Grant. Holy crap, she said, her voice shaking slightly, clearly disturbed by the intensity of the scene I painted. She is unhinged. You have to end it. You owe her nothing, especially not after that. She is not just insecure. She is abusive. I told her I had already decided. I cannot talk to her face to face. I will not survive another one of those screaming fits. I will not. Emily understood the sheer emotional exhaustion I was facing. Then don't. Send her a text. Write out everything you told me. You do not have to be brave, you just have to be final. Get it done and turn your phone off. Her instruction felt cowardly, especially after 6 years. But it also felt necessary for my self-preservation. I hung up the phone and walked into my apartment. Ankle-length hair. I sat down on my couch and drafted the longest, most difficult text message of my life. I wrote about the lack of support, the constant jealousy, the way she used my new career as an excuse for her cynicism, and how the verbal attacks had destroyed my trust and respect for her. I emphasized that I needed a partner, not a warden, and that the relationship had become emotionally toxic and unsustainable. The text was long, detailed, and utterly final. With shaking hands, I hit send. The response was immediate. Before I could even put my phone into airplane mode, his family had ankle-length hair. That the screen lit up with 3 incoming text messages in rapid succession, followed by an immediate phone call. I knew she was reading my message and launching into the predictable counter attack of insults and frantic emotional manipulation. I took a deep breath. And, remembering Emily's advice, I shut the phone off completely. The silence was instantly restorative. La Sedette. I spent the rest of the night in a state of quiet, nervous dread. The next day, I had work. I could not avoid it. So I turned my phone back on, expecting a torrent. It was worse than I imagined. She had left dozens of texts and voicemails. Most of them were hysterical attempts at guilting me, but interspersed were bursts of pure, vile anger. I tried one last time to communicate, hoping she had calmed down after a night to process. I sent her a brief text. Sarah. This is not a negotiation. It is over. I need you to respect that. Her reply was swift and crushing. She did not address my message as Henelaire. She immediately reverted to her state of cursing at me and insulting Ben, calling me weak and pathetic, and accusing me of trading a loyal woman for a flash of status. That was the final confirmation. My attempt at closure was simply an invitation for more abuse. There was nothing left to salvage. I sent one last text message. Toan. I can no longer be a part of your life. Then, I selected her contact and pressed the button that severed the connection completely. I blocked her number, blocked her social media, and blocked her on every platform we shared. The immediate feeling of pure relief that washed over me was shocking. It was a physical release of tension I hadn't realized I was carrying. The internal conflict, the guilt, the fear of conflict. It all evaporated in the face of my decisive action. It felt like I had shed a heavy, poisonous skin. That was 4 days ago. I have not heard from her since. The only sign that she processed the event was when Emily texted me to say Sarah had deactivated or deleted her Facebook profile. Now, as I sit alone, there is guilt, yes, But mostly, there is a profound, exciting calm. The first 4 days were eerily quiet. My phone remained silent, and the silence in my apartment wasn't the empty dread I expected, but a deep, profound peace. Or farting fair. I found myself functioning at work, with a clarity I hadn't felt in months. The constant background anxiety that used to follow me home. The anticipation of the next argument, the next accusation, was simply gone. I felt guilty. Naturally. 6 years is a long time, and throwing away that history felt irresponsible. But that guilt was completely overridden by the overwhelming feeling of freedom and self-discovery. I talked to Ben about the finality of the breakup. Keeping the details of Sarah's worst outburst private, but admitting that we were fundamentally incompatible. He was supportive. Each winter can let. Simply stating that some people are meant to grow together, and others, tragically, are not. You have been growing so much with this new job, Ben said during a slow shift. You needed someone who was happy to see you succeed, not someone who felt threatened by it. His words resonated deeply. I realized Sarah had not wanted me to grow because she knew she could not keep up. Her negativity and cynicism were survival mechanisms designed to keep me small and close. I saw Emily again, and she confirmed what I had instinctively known. I made the right choice. She pointed ankle-length hair. She pointed out that I had spent years supporting Sarah, helping with school research, taking time off work when her relative died, and handling her car maintenance, without ever asking for a reciprocal act of support, until the day I was truly stressed. Sarah's response proved that she saw the relationship as a one-way street. A reliance, not a partnership. The contrast with Claire was now the compass for my future, not a source of pain. I didn't want Claire herself, but I wanted a partner with her qualities. I wanted someone who was open to new friends once in a while. Lee Halfand had ankle-length hair, who wouldn't judge a person before meeting them, and who possessed the effortless trust and support I saw in her. Each one his family had ankle-length hair. I don't expect my significant other to like everyone I bring home, but I do expect them to at least meet them and reserve judgment. I'll equalize their hair. I also realized that I was not just losing a girlfriend. I was finding myself. I had always deferred to Sarah's introverted stay-at-home nature, believing that was my own preference. Now, free from her resistance, I understood that I enjoy being outgoing and social. I want to do new things, see new places, and share spontaneous moments. Even if it is just a ridiculous kite flying session. The future felt vast and terrifying, but it was my terrifying. I had successfully confronted the largest source of conflict in my adult life, not by screaming back, but by choosing my own peace. I had traded 6 years of exhausting tension for 4 days of quiet, hopeful freedom. The relationship was over, but my life, the one I actually wanted, was just beginning. I did not think I would have another update right now. I was feeling a lot better than I ever expected I would.